Hello, I'm Anna Winter, and thank you all for joining us for our first Vogue Global Conversation, as we all start to think about our future, the future of fashion, and how we can best rebuild this industry that we all love so much. Over the next 4 days, we will bring together Vogue editors from around the world to speak with designers and retailers and CEOs to start the conversation on how we can move forward in ways which are both thoughtful and compassionate. All of us at all of our Vogues are unified in our deep commitment to help our fashion community to get through this crisis. We, like so many other industries right now, are in distress. And that's what these conversations are about. How do we help each other redesign our future? I think that I speak for all of us when I say that we could all do with a little hope right now, that we long for the things that we've missed, the simple things that now seem like miracles of everyday life. We have witnessed terrible scenes and felt acutely how the coronavirus has impacted all of our lives. And we are so incredibly grateful that so many have courageously stepped forward to keep our communities safe and have selflessly worked to fight this pandemic. On behalf of all of us, thank you. So today, for our first series of conversations, I am delighted that Edward Enninful, editor-in-chief of British Vogue, will be talking to designer Marc Jacobs and then designer Kenneth about the future of creativity. Directly afterwards, Eugenia Torriente, Spanish Vogue's editor-in-chief, will be joined by Stella McCartney and Gabriela Hirst to talk about the future of creativity and sustainability. And lastly, some of the Vogue team are standing by online to answer your questions directly. A huge, huge thank you to everybody who agreed to take part this week and to everybody who made it happen. I hope all of you watching will find the conversations both informative and inspiring. And please do look after yourselves. Now, Edward, could you please join us?
Thank you, Anna. Today, I'll be discussing the future of creativity, and joining me will be Marc Jacobs, followed by Kenneth. I am so excited to first introduce one of the world's most influential designers and a good friend of mine, Marc Jacobs. Hello, Marc.
Hello, Edward.
How are you?
Hi, Edward. How are you?
Good. Marc, I mean, it's incredible to think a year ago, we were at your wedding, surrounded by friends and family, and a year later, we're in lockdown.
Yeah.
I mean, I wanted to know, what's been the most challenging thing for you in lockdown while you know, and are you at home even? You know?
No, I'm not at home. Actually, Charlie and I, we sold our home just before the show, the last show.
Oh, wow.
And we had scheduled to move into the Mercer Hotel before, while looking for a new place to live in the city. So our plans had been to move into this hotel, I mean, before the pandemic. So that's where I am. I'm in a room in a hotel.
Wow.
And that's where I will stay.
And what's been the most challenging thing about working from the hotel?
Well, I think, first of all, I've been working in terms of continuing to participate via Zoom with things that are ongoing. This is a place for me of creativity. I work within a team, and it's our daily interaction, and it's life that sort of stimulates and provides a catalyst for me and what me and my team create each season. So I wouldn't say it's the most creative place to be. I mean, it all just feels like a terrible, terrible episode of Black Mirror, really.
Yeah.
This whole thing. You know?
Just like we're reliving the same day.
Yeah. So I think the hardest thing for me is being present, because in this isolation, being present is a place of no fear. It's drifting off into the future that makes me quite frightened about what might be, what could be, or doom, or you know, I don't know. It's the future that I find is the fearful place. And then sort of living in the past is something, while it seems fun sometimes to revisit memories and how great everything was and how wonderful it was to do this and all these fantastic experiences, I find going forward, we have to kind of let go of our past a little bit. We've got to learn something new. And to carry around the past probably isn't the best way forward.
Yeah, we have to focus and move through this time.
Yeah, it's just very, it's not human really to sort of think that I will be so robotic as to stay blinders on, focused, and with my eyes on the future, because we are all a product of everything we've ever done and all of our experiences. And as you know, I mean, part of our experience as fashion people and as creators or designers or editors is that there's a huge creative process which involves, I mean, everything from meeting people, meeting new girls and models and photographers, and creating. And creating isn't done in a vacuum or a bubble.
No.
It might be done within the bubble of our world, our fashion world, but it's the stimulation of the entire world that is the catalyst that gives us the drive and the energy and the passion to create. So it's quite complicated, really.
We need human contact.
Well, yeah. I mean, I feel way before this pandemic, we've been taught to use this machine, this computer machine and this laptop and this Zoom and this FaceTime and all that stuff. And, you know, I think this is really the most dangerous part of this whole virus, is how we're learning social distancing, and how we can order everything on Amazon, and how we can get everything at home, and how we don't really need to go out, how we don't really need to see each other because we can find each other on screen. And to me, this is the most dangerous thing, which started way before this virus. And we've got, you know, we've got ourselves to kind of not blame, but I mean, we've all become a little bit lazy. I mean, people are coming to shows and holding up iPads or holding up their phones. And so they were making the live experience of what like a show was sort of obsolete in a way. So I think we've got to, going forward, if we really do value the idea of human connection or connection, not virtual connection, then we've got to take much better care of it, right?
Cool. So talking of shows, are you designing a collection now?
No.
Why not?
Why not?
Yes.
Well, I don't know, to be honest. I mean, I don't know what we'll be doing or when we'll be starting. But, you know, to design a collection, I need my team. And my team needs to look at fabric. And those fabrics come from Italy. And we travel. And there's a lot of things that go on. So until we discover a new way to work, until we create a new way to work, or a new end goal to work towards, we really have nothing to do. I mean, the people who are most active right now at Marc Jacobs are the people who are, you know, making sure that if you order something online, it's delivered. Mm-hmm. But those are the people vital right now in terms of actually working. I mean, I think creativity is absolutely essential, but we've not figured out what that looks like. I mean, I think, honestly, for me, speaking solely for me, I'm in a process of grief right now. I mean, I'm grieving the way I used to do things.
Why are you grieving, Marc?
Well, why? Because this is all very sad. I think we've got to let go of old ideas. And so I don't know that I can get far enough in this process without grieving the process I knew. Mm-hmm. And let go of that to see a new tomorrow, you know? And it's very normal. This is a very human experience to be in something which has so much uncertainty. You know, there are stages of sadness and anger and fear. And that's a very real thing. And I think once we get through that, or once I get through that, and once there's some order restored to a system, we can start operating within a system that hopefully has changed, right? And hopefully that system, which has changed as a result of all of this, will allow us to define what we do in a new way, in a different way, to express it in another way, to show it, to make it, to produce it, to distribute it, to communicate it. All of that will have to change. I mean, it's just one plus
a new way
one,
of fashion. Right? A new way of fashion. I mean, I wake up and I have to do the same thing you're doing, speak to my team on Zoom, you know, reach out to people who need help. It's a really vital time to be available for me. And then moving on to another question is, with all this happening, do you think that fashion shows will happen? I mean, how are you going to present your Spring Summer 21 collection, for instance?
Well, as I said, I'm not sure there will be a Spring Summer 21 collection. I mean, I just don't know. I don't know when we'll be out of this. And then, you know, the process, if we get out of this, and that at an early enough time for that to even be possible, you see, it still requires research and fabric development and all this other stuff, if we were to do it the way we've always done it, which is the only way we currently know how to do it. So the process won't allow for that sort of old way of developing a collection. As far as showing it, we certainly won't be showing it that way. I mean, you know, already last season, very few people came to New York. Very few people showed in New York. So the idea of everybody just now getting on a plane and coming to a show, from models to hairstylists to makeup artists to editors and, you know, journalists, it's like, that's just kind of unrealistic to think about right now. I just don't think that when this lifts, that everyone's just going to get back on a plane and back on a train and back on a bus and just come to a show and everything's going to be as it was. So again, I think the process, we have to be patient with the process. And while everyone wants to heal the economy and restore to some sense of normalcy, I think, you know, we have to be very careful because this is very real, and this is a partial, the virus and the pandemic it's accelerated where we were all going, if you think about it.
Yeah.
In that way. And so I think it's created this pause. And if we don't individually learn from the pause, as well as a system learn from this pause, then we'll find ourselves in worse shit later. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I you know, we are not allowed to sort of go very far, but when I do take a few steps outside my house in London, I see that most stores are closed. In this age when all stores are gone, how do you, or how important is it to stay in touch with your consumer?
Well, so this is a mystery. Stores have been closing. Again, this has been a very difficult business to be in for a long time, I think. I think, you know, I think we have struggled with how to reach the consumer because people are not shopping as much in stores as they used to. They like to buy online. So if we are going to rethink our business as an online business solely, I mean, without retail stores or however we see it, then I think we have to think about what we make. I mean, we don't need fabulous red carpet dresses if there is no fabulous red carpet. I speak to people in the movie industry and they say, well, there might not be movie theaters in the future and all the movie studios have shut down. I mean, everybody's, if you think about life, I mean, creativity will never stop. It's absolutely
never. It can't.
I mean, where would everyone be during this quarantine if they didn't have books to read and movies to watch? And I don't know, for me, I don't know where I'd be if I didn't have something to get dressed up for every day. I mean, it's just vital to me. It's as essential as anything else. So being creative and creativity is absolutely essential, and it will always live and will always dance, if you know what I mean, metaphorically. But I think, but again, what I do and the clothes that I make and the way that we present a show, it feels like that probably will never exist as we know it, the way we did it.
Yeah, definitely. And production's shut down, we all know, all over the world. How will autumn winter 20 collections be produced? Do you think the pre-fall is going to last us through to September? If you were to take a guess.
You see, we weren't able to produce our collection. The collection, after we showed it in New York, it went to Paris, to the showrooms. I think you came to the showroom to see it. And, then all of this started with the coronavirus, and Italy, if you remember, shut first.
Yeah.
There was a lot of illness in Italy. Well, all our fabrics, every fabric that we purchased, with the exception of 2, perhaps, came from Italy. So first of all, no stores, there were no buyers going into the showroom because they all left Paris early after. So there were no orders. There was no fabric orders placed because we place our fabric orders based on orders from stores. And, we made an attempt at showing the collection again in New York, but again, we had already shut down the building, allowing no visitors in because of the coronavirus. So if you don't allow visitors in, then how can store buyers come in to see the collection?
Yeah.
They can't see the collection, then how can they buy it? And if you can't order the fabric from Italy, which the fabrics were all from, you can't receive the fabric. And if we can't receive the fabric, we can't make the collection. So therefore, we weren't able to produce that incredible show that we did, which is a shame.
It was such an incredible show. I mean, so many people were inspired by it. I know I was.
Yes, I mean, maybe. I mean, the reality of a collection that like that, and the cost and the price of those clothes, it's produced in such small number at such a great expense that it's always been something that is more, I think, about its halo effect, and it's done to inspire. And of course you see it in editorial, and you see it on the red carpet and all of that stuff. And it's more of a statement that is meant to inspire people and to keep the company itself engaged in the conversation of fashion, and the world at large engaged in the conversation of fashion. It's a kind of a lab for ideas and thoughts and feelings. And I think that's the role that, couture has always played, or very high fashion, ready to wear has played, because it reaches so few, but its thoughts and effects and ideas affect many more in the cosmetics that come from that are inspired by it, or fragrances or accessories that come from it. Those are things that reach many more people. So I think, unfortunately, we didn't get to ride on the energy of that collection shut down, because I think it would have given birth to a lot of very dynamic thoughts and
great ideas, fashion shoots,
and I think and perhaps actually real things that people could access in terms of their cost, etc. But it was all stopped. So where we resume, I don't know. I mean, I don't have the answer to that. I don't think anybody does. I think anybody.
We all know the fashion industry's we all know the fashion industry's infrastructure has been completely dismantled.
Yes.
Do you think this is the time to rethink the show calendar and reset the way designers are made to churn out collection after collection? Well,
that I never agreed with to begin with. So it's funny, I think I read Pierre, who goes by the name of Pamboy on Instagram. I read, him all the time. I follow him all the time. And I think he has some very interesting thoughts, and I think he's very clever. And I mean, he had said what he had expected from this, and I really agreed. I think, if anything, there should be 2 shows a year. I've only ever thought there should be 2 shows a year. And I don't know that we'll ever have 2 shows a year anymore, but if we do, I think that's all there needs to be. I think the amount of stuff we make and the quantity we make and the amount of times it's shown, it's just so excessive. We've done everything to such excess that there is no consumer for all of it. And you kind of, and everyone's exhausted by it. The designers are exhausted by it. The journalists are exhausted from following it. And so no one really appreciates it. It's all become a chore. And it's a chore that's just a waste of time and energy and money and materials and all of that. And I just think that whole waste is taking the luxury out of something as well as the creativity out of it. Because when you're on such a tight calendar and you're just told to produce, it's like having a gun to your head and saying, you know, dance monkey. It's like, it's just ridiculous, you know? So I think again, if the system doesn't change, then nothing will change.
That's true. And do you think this period has forced brands to be more agile, less linear, and really to think outside the box and be more creative?
I think we will find out if that's true when people are up and running, because we certainly had to be agile in terms of, I speak to our CEO, Eric, all the time, and you know, he's being as agile as he can, moving things from here to there with his production staff, etc. And I think we're trying to be agile in the way that we continue to serve a Marc Jacobs customer, but how we will do that, how me and my team will do that, how he and his team will do that, that remains to be seen. Again, we're doing it we're in, you know, again, we're in emerge mode. I have a friend who always says, out of emergency comes emerge. So we haven't emerged yet, but we are in emerge. You know, we have to get through this. And like I said, I think there's stages of all of this. There's like the kind of shock and the panic, the anger, the fear, the sadness, and the letting go of old ideas, and then the embracing of new ideas, and then the action of enforcing or putting those new ideas into work.
Last question, Marc.
Yes.
What kind of changes will be positive ones to come out of all this?
I think, you know, most of these questions, and as I've been answering, I've been speaking for myself, but as part of an industry. And I think the most positive, the most positive thing that can come out of this is if each person looks at themselves and really looks inward and says to themselves, what can I do to contribute to the good of this world and to what to what I do? And if we each individually take care of ourselves and do something good for someone else, we're already miles ahead of where we've been. So I really think this comes down to each individual. And I don't mean the individuals in creativity or the individuals in corporate America or in politics or in religion, but I mean every individual everywhere says, how can I love myself so that I can be better and of service to somebody else? If we can do one positive thing, if we can, whatever it is in terms of the environment, in terms of being kind, in terms of creation, if we can contribute to the benevolence of this world we live in, then we'll be making a huge, incredible, well-learned, smart step forward.
Fantastic, Marc. Thank you so much for joining us, Marc.
Thank you, dear Edward.
Always a pleasure.
Mwah.
Look forward to seeing you soon.
Yes, dinner.
Yes, please, when we can go out. We will.
When we get out here.
We will.
I love you.
Love you, Marc. Thank you so much, Marc, for joining us. And joining us now is a Nigerian designer whose work has put African fashion on the global stage. I would love to welcome Kenneth Eze. Hi, Kenneth.
Hi, Edward.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. So I'm just going to go straight in. I asked Marc earlier what he's been doing sort of in lockdown, how he's staying creative. How do you plan your day and how do you stay in touch with your team and remain creative?
Yeah. I mean, the lockdown is completely it's a sudden change,
Yeah.
you know, and exactly like thinking about also having to have our first Paris debut. I think it's just like something very different to fall into now. But the exciting part of it is that we've actually reinvented a loom that we use, and it's very economical. I've redesigned this loom with the industrial designer um, called Gabriela, and we've been working on this loom. And now it's also giving us chances to actually see what we can do with the loom and how we can send these looms to our weavers' houses, and how they can also keep weaving from home, and now to also just like take the advantage of implementing this into the community that we weave with.
Okay.
I guess that has been really exciting, but really quite challenging as well, because like if you think about in terms of like communication, technology, some of my weavers are like in the village where I have to like communicate through like WhatsApp, and like having to also like almost catch everything or like design something through WhatsApp. It's just, yeah, I think it's interesting. Yeah.
Right. And I know that you produce sort of some of your clothes in Italy, but you also work very closely with Nigerian weavers. What is the situation in Nigeria currently?
I mean, the situation in Nigeria, we're not allowed to work. We have a lockdown, like most countries. But then again, like, we're just trying to see how this could work, because we also have a product that works in producing inside the house. And that has always been how they've been producing this garment. I think it's also like giving us the chances of not like stopping how to work. We still focus on like weaving the fabric. And then we also like thinking about how to also improve the community. How are we also like passing informations out? It's for me very important that I'm passing informations out to my weaver to also like teach them how to prevent themselves during this crucial time. Explaining what a face mask is, because some actually like never worn one before, and why it's important. So it's just like a lot of work to put on during this hard time. And I guess, yeah, we hope for people in Italy, it's quite different. Like the technology works better in Italy. So it's quite like, it's easy to like access. I believe they're fine. They understand the situation. It's just my responsibility to make sure that I put together my team here for them to actually like move on in a very positive and
Cool. And how is the pandemic affecting your creativity? I mean,
well,
is it business as usual, or is it taking more of an effort? Tell me.
I mean, it's sad because, I travel a lot, for example. I'm always maybe somewhere in the village in Nigeria weaving fabric, or like I'm somewhere in Italy at the production house, or I'm in Vienna as well producing fabric. So it's just like, now it's sad that, I can't be like, I'm not being able to go out to actually like physically see these things. But then again, it's also like quite exciting to also see the challenges that the future could also face on how I could work towards my creativity, and I could also work towards my brand in terms of like preserving what we have with the situation right now.
Great. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of conversation surrounding whether fashion shows should take place. And what I liked about your show in January was, after your show, you set up your collection at a friend's apartment in Paris, and you posted buyers on Instagram. And I heard your orders more than doubled for last season. When you have successes like this, do we still need fashion shows?
I think that this is the period definitely for us brand to fashion shows are very important. I feel like they were also like, it's very needed. At the time I had my showroom in my friend's apartment in Paris. It was pretty much that was that time. It was the time when we're trying to grow. We're trying to also like we were in Paris. I was moving my products from Lagos to Paris. So it's a product where like a lot of people haven't seen before. Like, I also know that I have to find a way to show people. And because of like, we had some good followings on Instagram, I had to make use of it because that's the only reach that I could use to tell my story. So it was quite easy for me to use the platform Instagram to do that. And then after that, I mean, we've seen also growth in the business. My aim is to expand the African market in terms of like, creativity. What we have here is to expand that. And that was the reason I did the show. It was for me very important to also see how my garments could also like, could work on the runway, because I don't also believe that every collection should be on the runway. Like, it's also up for like the designer to be able to like see it and to think about how he wants to present his collection. Shows are very important. Like, we also like need to think about models, like people working around the show, the PR around the show, and those sort of things. Yeah.
The whole image, you're saying.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was very important to do the show and to see where the brand could also go towards. And also, like he also really moved on. The show also moved our sales, because like it creates a publicity that people are also like could also trust in buying the brand. Yeah. It's a sustainable brand coming from Africa that, people are still like be adamant about it, that, oh wow, like where would you ship from? Like, are you sure this is going to work out? But doing a show, there is a bit of like, it gives a comfort to the buyer and your consumer that, okay, this product is actually going to stay here. It's meant to be here. That's what I think.
I mean, for me, I remember talking to my team and I was so excited. You were having your first show in Paris, and I know what that means to a designer. And we went straight from there into lockdown. So I kept thinking, oh my God, I wonder how Kenneth is coping. So it's great to hear you're doing so well. Which brings me to my next question, which is, what do you think will be the positive changes that come out of this time? Should we be making less and better, which I know is the motto behind your brand? You have a sustainable brand.
Yeah.
What good things will come out of this period, in your opinion, or should come out of this period?
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to have conversations as much as possible to friends in the industry, friends outside the industry, just, with my weavers, for example, and then seeing out, like, trying to focus on what life can actually bring after the pandemic. I think everyone is also like talking about how it is important to start creating content. Like, the story behind everything is very important. And I feel like people are also like keen on how to see the story and how they could also hear the story, what they could learn from the story. Education is also very important. I feel like fashion has almost become where something is still very educative, but at the same time, am I really seeing the source? Am I really seeing the scratch where everything is starting from? I'm not so sure, and transparency is also very important, because once transparency is coming, you can easily explain why you're making this product, where the product is from, history of the product. And I think that's where the world is shifting to, I also want to, for example, see where magazines and how they have in their, there's this amazing cover, but I also want to know how did this cover come along? I also want to see the backstage imagery. I want to see those sort of things. I want to see how it's being put together. And I feel like that's what makes a unique a unique item. And not even everyone in fashion, in terms of food, agriculture, everyone is just talking about it now. And it's exciting to see, and hopefully the future can get into the space of thinking of how to produce and how to be resourceful.
Fantastic. Which brings me to my last question.
Yeah.
Do you think this period has forced brands to be more creative? That's the first question. And you kind of answered a bit of this before, but let's wrap it up. How do we move forward in this wake of this pandemic?
I mean, like I said before, brands are thinking about how to be creative. We're thinking about how to tell the story now. we're thinking about,
yes, very important.
thinking about what can be done, like what story can I tell you from my own place now? Like, you know, like this is the story that I'm telling you because like a lot of people are listening to our conversations now. And this is my story about my brand, is that I'm actually home. This is still part of work. You know, from like brainstorming with you. I think it pushes the creativity for people to start thinking about, okay, you know, now we're here now, but then the business still moves on because it's something that is done with so much passion. And something that is done with so much passion, you could only speak about it, you could only act after it. You can't, there's like, those are the things that you could really do. And I believe that, you know, people, you know, like designers like myself that I've been talking to, I've just been like really focusing on how they want to like make a change, like what they want to talk about. Do I want to talk about, you know, this lady that has made this embroidery fabric in China, like, you know, like it's like conversations that's starting to pull up. And once conversations start pulling up, I feel like the creative industry also like, you know, start moving turn and they start looking at what people are saying, because creativity never stops nowhere. Like it needs to keep moving. Like, you know, you have to find a way to do it. And I believe that creativity now, the way forward, the way we could do it with the situation we are now, is just to keep creating content and also using the spaces that we have to also like express and to tell our story and our content. So my own personal space would be the space I'm using to telling my content for like people to understand what I'm trying to do. Okay, now I'm home, but like, you know, still working. Like one of my weavers been with me for 2 weeks now. We're still working from home. Like those things are what I want people to see. And yeah, and you know, like also thinking about the business point of view, like orders that people are canceling the orders, like shops are canceling the orders. For me, it's also very terrifying coming from having done this show that has cost me money eventually, because like I'm also like thinking about how to build my business from this show and how to move the, you know, how to employ people more. And now it's just like, okay, I think I need to be like I need to stop. Now I need to actually think about how can I sell this product myself? And the only way I can sell this, yeah, exactly. So the creativity comes with thinking. It's like now I'm thinking, how can I sell my product? I know that I can sell my product by going online, but like you can't just put a product online. You still need to like create content. People need to know about the story behind it, because there is no experience of walking into a shop, someone attending to you, explain the collection to you. Like you need to explain about every single piece of what you have in your collection. And I guess that's where my own creativity is at this time. I'm thinking more on, okay, they're canceling now, but the show must go on. I need to sell my clothes. I need to sell my clothes, and it's very important to also like relax and get the right message out there. Yeah.
Great. Kenneth, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you so much, Edward.
It's always great hearing from you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining me. And now I will hand over to Eugenia, Editor-in-Chief of Spanish Vogue, who will be discussing sustainability. And thanks everybody, and thank you for watching. Goodbye.
Thank you so much, Edward. As you were saying, in this second part of the panel, we will be focusing on sustainability. And it's a real pleasure to do it with two amazing women that have been leading this matter in a brilliant way. Designers Stella McCartney and Gabriela Hirst. Hello, Stella.
Hi.
Hello, thank you for being with us.
Is this actually working?
It is working. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Gabriela, so much for being with us. Hola.
Hola. Hola from New York City.
Both Stella and Gabriela have been champions in sustainability as a structural, economical, and moral choice in everything they do as designers. So in the interest of time, I'm skipping a very detailed recollection of your many achievements and efforts. And I will jump straight into asking some of the almost 4,000 questions that we've received for this panel. And the first one would be, Stella, what is your definition of sustainability?
God, yeah, that's a really hard question, by the way, because I think, especially for me, like I've been sustainable, I feel, for pretty much all of my life, certainly all of my business life. And all of a sudden, it's been a very, very overused word. And I don't think anyone even knows what it means anymore. So for me personally, the word sustainability it's a state of mind, it's a state of consciousness. It's about balance, probably, mostly at the end of the day. It's really, for me, the most important thing is trying to use the natural resources that we have on Mother Earth and use them in a mindful way and in a way that doesn't deplete them. So when it comes to my business, the word sustainability means really being mindful about the process. You know, at Stella McCartney, over 60% of the environmental good that we do is from looking at the source material and working years in advance. And I think in order to be sustainability in fashion, have sustainability in fashion, you need to think in advance. You need to think about everything in a circular way in its entirety. And at the end of the day, it's a lot of it is about waste, you know, waste not, want not, and do unto the planet as you would have it do unto you.
Thank you so much. And what about you, Gabriela? What would be your definition of sustainability?
For me, sustainability is, as Stella said, several things, but it's a practice. As in any practice, you have to start with something challenging but achievable. And as your confidence and reassurance grow, you move to the next challenge. And it's also a state of mind. I grew up in a ranch in South America, extremely remote, where my family's been there for 6 generations. So we grew up sustainable out of a utilitarian need. My mother still lives off the grid. And we also learn about quality there from a utilitarian perspective, because you have to build products that last. So we always lived and consumed with very few things, but they were made well, so they could stand the force of nature. And sustainability is as well learning how to work with the limitations and parameters, which in my opinion it's great for creativity because it focuses it. And Stella was saying, we do not live in an endless cornucopia of natural resources. So we need to understand that. And it's waste management as well. There is not one problem in environmental issues that you cannot trace down to waste management. And we have to balance that production and consumption. And it's not only our industry. 1/3 of all food goes to waste worldwide. It's $1 trillion. And waste, at the end of the day, is a design flaw. It doesn't exist in nature.
Totally. And Stella, we were already talking before this pandemic about how the system needed to change, but how this crisis has brought a deeper and more immediate sense of urgency to sustainability.
Oh, how long have you got here? You know, it's really fascinating, though. It's crazy. We're all, for the first time in the history of the earth, we are all connected by one thing. And I can talk about it on a personal level for quite some time. It's very emotional. And I think you can talk about it on a business level. And clearly we're here to do both. I think it's fascinating that this is the first time in history that we can measure the damage we've done. We have seen 25% less carbon emissions in the month of February in China. We can actually, this will be a geography lesson for our children, you know, this moment in time. And I think that we have to come out of it with some kind of change. That's critical. I think it's a great disservice, especially in the fashion industry, for all of the people watching this, for all of the people engaging in the fashion industry, from the hairdressers to the stylists, to the photographers, to the editors, to the fashion designers, the fabric mills, the manufacturers, everyone, the retail stores. If we don't use this time to pause, to have some kind of conscious outcome, then it is really a disservice, you know. So I think the main thing for me personally is to use this time so mindfully. And I'm already pretty mindful, I'm already pretty passionate, and I'm already, you know, a thinker about how to make our industry better. We have to stop and consider the waste. It's spiraled out of control. We've seen in such a short period of time how incredible nature is, how she bounces back so quickly when we just stop for a second. I think that's so hopeful, you know, and none of us knew. I think I always thought, how could we ever get out of this issue, this problem that we're facing? Will we ever be able to heal Earth? It looks like we can. So we have to come out with hope. We have to come out realizing we consume too much. We have too much waste. You know, in the fashion industry, fast fashion, every single second, which is already many, many seconds of everybody engaging in this conversation at Vogue, a truckload of fast fashion is incinerated or buried every single second. That gives $100 billion worth of waste is not used. That's a business opportunity. That's hugely exciting. We can come out of this moment as a fashion industry and go, you know what? We can do so much better. We can do so much more with all this waste. We can consume completely differently. We're all having to work completely differently. And it's a reset. It's an absolute reset button moment in the history of Earth as we know it. And our industry, you know, I've already obviously been working this way for many, many years. It demands a different way of working. And I feel so blessed that I can come back into this conversation with a lot of knowledge, you know, and already practicing what I preach. But I hope that other people can use this time to reconsider how they're sourcing materials, to really respect Mother Earth. You know, we all know how this possibly came to light. We need to look at how we're farming animals, how we're consuming animals, our respect to Mother Earth and nature. And we can still have incredible, desirable, fashionable, well-made, timeless pieces, as Gabriela says, you know, but it is a time to use efficiently and with respect, and to enter back into normality in a new way, because we all know how we were practicing things previously. We can do better. And I think now's the time to ask those questions and hopefully, and you know, actually action it when we get back.
Yeah, some people is already saying that the worst that could happen to us is this return to normality. So we should be thinking what this new normality is going to mean for all of us and how we restart in a different manner.
I mean, normality wasn't really normal, in my opinion. I've never really understood the process of how we consume, how unconscious we are on the whole. And what's been so exciting over the last year or so, and the few years, is to see the shift in people's mindset, to see the youth coming to the streets, you know, being rebellious, having a point of view, having a strong opinion in a better way, you know, and it was already going that way. And for this to have sort of such a harsh, abrupt kind of entry into all of our lives, I think it didn't, you know, none of us wanted this. But I'm a very half glass full type of person, and I think we can only come out of this with a better future. You know, it could be a beautiful thing. It's hard on all of our industries, on all of our jobs, on all of our mental states. You know, it's hard on everyone, and we have to be kinder, better people. We have to use it as a way to connect. You know, I think I've probably connected with more of my team, weirdly, via this moment, you know, globally, than I would on a day-to-day basis. You know, normally I'm in my little design room with the same people, and there has to be a beautiful, you know, outcome from this. But I think we do have to recognize how we treat our fellow creatures. You know, at Stella McCartney, the biggest environmental positive other than sourcing is we don't kill animals, and it really has a massive, massive positive footprint on our environmental profit and loss, you know, and that is a fact. And maybe the good of this can be that people just slow down, they maybe ask more questions, and a little bit more considerate.
Thank you. And Gabriela, you have also been championing sustainability, and can you please provide us some specific examples of how your own sustainability efforts have better positioned your business for the future?
So when we created Gabriela Hirst, we took two values, which is sustainability and long-term view, and we grew and built our business based on this. And a concrete example, for example, was we had the opportunity to double the size of our business by wholesaling our bags. And if you look at it from our sustainability value, that means taking double the natural resources to make similar amount of profit. So that didn't fit with our sustainable value. And the reason you would do it is to grow your brand awareness really quickly. And that doesn't fit with our long-term view. So we learned to grow with quality over quantity, and maybe because I come from a small country of 3 million people, that's our only angle. So we've been very mindful about strategically growing and not overexposing and over distributing. So we only have 75 points of distribution wholesale, which that allowed us to build our own stores in a sustainable way. So we have 2 stores and a concession. And being lean and nimble, I think it's a good state to find yourself in this quicksand sort of terrain. I also think that being working with the limitations and parameters, we have the goal by 2021 to be at least 80% of non-virgin materials, meaning using materials that were already in existence. So we've been for months working, hunting and gathering, as I call it. And we gathered for this resort spring season, at least 60% of our materials have been sourced from pre-existing. And I think that what we've worked really hard, which I think is called, for us, is transparency, because I think bringing it to our customers and clients to why do we make this product and the transparency on it. So we created something that's called the garment journey, which is launching this spring, which is basically a QR code that is in the label of our garments. And it tells you, why did we choose, let's say, this fiber, which is hemp, because it has a less absorption of water and it uses no pesticides. And then it takes you to the mill, right? Which is the mill that is producing this garment? How is their water waste management? How are they energy powered? Is there renewable? And then it takes you to the human social component of who's making your product. And why do we choose? We always choose quality above all. That's number one. And who are the people that are manufacturing our product? And usually they are second generation or third generation family-owned business or women-led businesses. And all of the chances are that if you look the path of quality, of real true quality, you're gonna find passion. Because behind passion, there's always care and pride to make a product that is well made and last. So I think having these two places and translate to our clients of where are the raw materials coming from and who is making your product, and tell our clients why do we make these choices for them. It brings our an exercise on transparency that I think is going to be needed. I think the shift was happening before, and now I think it's going to be empowered by this pandemic, because I feel that because it has affected us in the Western world situation that we live, we feel more empathic, maybe perhaps about things that happen in other parts in the world, like Yemen and Syria. So I think becoming more empathic will be hopefully the result I would like for this pandemic. And I think that at the end of the day, all the good values that we put in our product will not be enough to just have people buy your product. They have to buy it because it's a great product, because it's good, it's well designed, and the desirability has to be there. No one is going to buy you for your good intentions.
And apart from these infinite video calls that we are all experiencing, Gabriela, how has this situation, this crisis, impacted the way you approach your daily work?
Well, it hasn't actually changed the way I think or behave, because I've been working for years now and focus on a parallel crisis, which is the climate crisis. And so I was already working with the limitations on an environment that was already in distress. And so how do we work around these restrictions? So in a way, I've been practicing, we've been practicing and working with self-imposed the limitations of the reality of what has been happening. And also, yes, the physical contact of being with one another it's highly missed. And we find creative ways to work by 3D fittings, which does not, is not the same, but it does provide a function. And I think on the personal level, I'm Latin, so, and I come from a gaucho culture where we kiss every stranger when we get introduced, and we drink mate from a metal straw that we shared. So being self-isolated and doing social distancing is counter nature for us, especially because we are all are social animals and we need each other. So becoming very creative of how to have contact and closeness with everyone is super important, at least for me, for my mental health. And I think that I try to, as I told my team, we shifted our goals. Obviously, when the budget started to change, we realized what is the main asset? It's our team. So to create now the goal for this year is to create the strongest team we've ever been, more efficient, more creative, and stronger. So if we can able to get out of this crisis stronger, that's our goal. And I try to keep positive, focus in the present and in the future. But I have children, so you have to, when you have children, you have the extra pressure of keeping a positive state, so you can hold everyone to some sort of normalcy for your family and for your team and for everyone else that needs your strength on that moment.
Stella, slowing down seemed so complicated only a few weeks ago, and now the world has forced to stop. Do you think this is gonna last? Do you think that we are gonna be slowing down, really, as an industry, I mean?
You know, I think we all know that we're creatures of habit. I don't know if slowing down, I mean, who knows? I would like to think that we might, you know, stay in this moment for longer than to be expected. I fear we may get back into our natural kind of craziness and the speed at which we seem to be so, you know, accustomed to. I think I'm sort of the opposite to Gabriela. I'm quite, you know, I'm actually sort of, self-isolation is quite sort of quite nice for a moment for me. I'm like, oh, you know, I too have children, and I'm cooking every meal, and I'm really getting to be with them, and I'm blessed enough to be in nature right now and not in the city. So, you know, for me, I'm like, you know, with animals, and I'm seeing the season of spring, and I'm finding it so inspiring. It's such a weird moment for this to have happened in the seasons, because this is the moment of birth and newness, and I'm kind of in it, and I find it to be really quite breathtaking. I think if we can all come back and see through the same eyes that we're seeing now, it would be a gift. It would be an incredible gift. But I do think that, look, you know, it's weird for me, because I was listening to Marc earlier, and he was saying he doesn't think he can do a collection, and he's working with the mills in Italy, and it's, you know, it's everything's, it's so you're ordering things. And the weird thing is, when you work in such a sustainable way, I have, like, all of my materials I have to do so many years in advance, because that's part of being a sustainable designer. So of course I work with the same Italian mills as Marc, and I'm sure a lot of the same luxury houses do, but I work so far in advance because I want to use my crops more efficiently with them. I want to have it transported more efficiently. I want to have less pesticides, so it takes longer. I work, for example, with a sustainable viscose. Viscose cuts down around 150 million trees a year. And at Stella McCartney, we took 3 years to find a forest in Sweden that we could replant the trees. So that process takes so much longer. And therefore and also even actually before this happened, I was thinking about my spring collection and thinking, how can I just not order any new fabrics? What have we got left over? What have we got here? You know, my mind is always trying to rethink and disrupt the norm. I think that's what you do when you work this way. And I hope people come back and they consider timelines. They respect that things can take a little longer if you want to do things better, that you can think in advance, that it will have a better impact. Not everything's so quick and just this sort of disposable throwaway mentality. I hope we can reconsider, that we can have a little more consciousness. I think would be a great gift to everybody and to the planet as well. So I think we could turn obviously back into the norm, but I hope not. I mean, I'm hearing a lot of the same things, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's from like-minded people. I think people that maybe didn't even think the way that we do are starting to understand. Possibly there is another way, and so that's hopeful. That gives me hope that I know there's another way. And so I hope that other people can see that now too a little bit.
Thank you so much, Stella, Gabriela. I am pretty sure I am not alone in saying that I could be listening to you all day. Unfortunately, we have run out of our scheduled time. So
we have to go and cook dinner for our kids. We've got to go do homework, cooking, like, you know, we have another job.
Or more.
So Stella, thank you so much for joining us, for all your efforts and dedications. It's always a pleasure to listen to you. Please stay safe, and thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye, ladies. Thank you for having me. Well, Gabriela, keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Gabriela, thank you so much for sharing your experience and your knowledge. It's always a pleasure to speak to you. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias. Thank you so much for the time, which is our ultimate luxury, and for everybody that stayed with us to listen. So thank you again for this opportunity to express our thoughts.
Thank you. I am very much looking forward for the amazing designs and initiatives that these two women will for sure provide us in the future. And also very much looking forward to tomorrow, second day of our Vogue Global Conversations, where Nicole Phelps, director of Vogue Runaway, will be hosting a panel about the future of shows. She will be joined by Olivier Rousteing of Balmain, Natasha Ramsey-Levy of Chloé, and Cédric Charby of Balenciaga. Please remember that this is a 4-day virtual event that will be happening till Friday. We have an amazing lineup of guests and a wide range of topics to be discussed. Also, there's going to be a recording of each day and session that's going to be uploaded in our website. And hopefully this is the first edition of a 3-part series that will also be continuing in May and June. We really hope that this first day of Vogue Global Conversations has been interesting and fruitful. And we thank you very much for joining us.